Pentucket Regional School District Business Meeting for June 6th, 2017. Roll call, Wayne Adams.
Yeah.
Joanna Blanchard.
Here.
Bill Buell. Emily Dwyer. Dick Hodges.
Here.
Andy Murphy, here. Lisa O'Connor.
Here.
Chris Redding.
Here.
Dina Trotta.
Here.
And I believe we're there.
Here.
Okay. Pledge of Allegiance. Where's our flag? There it is.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
I'm sorry, my hearing's not so good. All in favor? Okay. So we need to go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining and litigation. If an open meeting may have detrimental effect on bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares.
So we need a motion for that.
So may I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Second? All in favor?
Do roll call.
I'm sorry. Roll call vote. Wayne?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Joanna?
Yes. Yes. Lisa, yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And we will be returning.
And we will be returning to the public meeting. The minutes from the business meeting of May 16th, 2017. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the May 16th meeting?
Yeah, I think so. Make a
So
motion.
moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? It is approved. All right, for our next item, we have public comment. Would any of the public like to comment?
I will. So many of us here are in the local immediate community. Oh, thank you.
So it can be
And if you could tell us your name.
Sure, my name's Stephen Anella, and I live up about a street up.
Yep.
And we've just been informed by the police department that there's a level 3 sex offender that's moved in on the corner here. And we're really out just trying to understand the impact and find out some information. Wanted to see what you guys think of the situation being in such close proximity, whether you have any adjustments to any of your safety plans or anything of that nature. You know, so we're really understanding for our families and also for our community, and looking just to see where you guys stand, if you have any comment.
So I'll kick it off. I spoke to the chief about this. And as you probably know, by law, they have to notify the community. And in this case, he thought it would also be a good idea if Dr. Mulqueen notified the parents in the school system, which, as the chief said, it wasn't a good idea. It wasn't a good thing to do. It was the only thing to do. So that was the reason why the note went out. What was interesting, what the chief told me is there are sort of two goals he needs to achieve. One is to notify people. The other is to also, and this, I'm being careful not to put this the wrong way because I don't want to sound sympathetic to a level 3 sex offender, but in other towns there have been incidents where that person is targeted by the community, tires slashed or whatever. So from his standpoint, they were going door to door in an attempt to notify people, but also let them know that if there's an issue, call us, don't do anything yourself. So in terms of the school safety program, I mean, I'll turn it over to Jeff on that one.
Yeah, so on the morning that the chief came to notify me, he delivered some detailed information with a picture to the schools. And I consulted with our attorney, the district's attorney, about the level of notification that we could do for both our teachers, our faculty members, and for the parents. And it was decided that distributing the level of detail that our schools have with a picture and a lot of personal information would potentially violate his rights. So I put out information that alerted people and that also cautioned people to be careful about how they acted around, the issue. Subsequent to that, one school committee member notified me that there was a sentiment about, how could this person be allowed to move here? And unfortunately, we have all sorts of folks who live in the community, and this is one of those situations where I don't have a choice about who lives in the community or not. So we have in place our regular, supervision of students, but we have an added layer of benefit that the chief has shared some very detailed information, including a picture with our offices. So I think, we're doing the best we can to make sure that we're in a secure state for our students.
Yeah.
So thank you, and I think we all understand and appreciate the restrictions and the requirements. And I guess a lot of us have been talking about, like the track team congregates right at that house at the beginning and end of their runs, and there's a lot of after-school activity right in that area there, and it seems, we're wondering if there might want to be any adjustments to some of that, or maybe more staff present, or I see kids running, the track team spreads out, and I see boys and girls from the sports events waiting for parents in the alone by themselves in the parking lot. So I think maybe, of course, we don't expect you guys to do anything about his presence, but wondering if those kinds of things are coming into some thought process. And I know it's the end of the year, which gives us a nice opportunity to maybe think ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. So I can talk with Dan Thornton about that and make some adjustments, particularly in the local neighborhood. I think that makes sense. I think we have a heightened awareness anyway about, strangers talking with our kids or people who don't know each other. But I can take a look at making some adjustments that might make sense, just generally. That's for sure. So I'll do that.
And I'll just add that Chief Reed's a really accessible guy, and if you want to talk to him about strategies, the kids should be taking, whether it be make sure you're with someone when you're around there or whatever, I'm sure he'd be happy to do that.
Would these parents be encouraged to know that we're going to have a school resource officer? And would someone like to comment about that?
Well, I think the school resource officer will generally be, an added benefit, but I don't know that, the kind of threat that might be posed by a sex offender would necessarily come into our school.
Okay.
And that's the kind of danger that the resource officer will be helpful with is, if there's a threat that comes into the school, we have somebody that will be here, waiting, but that, in my mind, isn't the kind of situation with maybe what we're dealing with here. So I'm always available and happy to talk with anyone. If you have some ideas that you'd like to share, like the idea about making that adjustment, that's a good one.
Yeah.
And I'll take that up with Dan Thornton. If you have other ones, I'm happy to talk through that with you. Sure. Yeah.
So I talked with some of the police too, and there was not a lot of, I know they're limited to the information they can share, but it seems that maybe, because we're not in this community used to this kind of thing, maybe that there is a more organized effort to disseminate what is safe practices to be done, to just try to get everyone, we don't have to talk about the person in particular, right, but maybe that will, what does it mean to watch out for your kids, as the police officer told me? We could all come up with our own ideas, but, be a little more organized and thorough potentially, in that perspective. It seemed to me that, and also reading from what has happened in other communities, that there's been community gatherings led by the police to say, hey, first of all, here's the information, what you can and cannot do. This is the law. Let me explain it to you instead of the piecemeal. And then, hey, here is some safe practices. My children go to a different school, and they have it, and I don't know about what happens here, but they have a safety seminar that happens once in a while, and maybe, I don't know what level of focus happens on strangers here, but again, that's the kind of things I think about, and I do not know what happens here, but I'll leave that as my last thought and comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That's a great idea, actually. I think safety seminar for the kids, maybe, and at the page at least.
Yeah, and I could
And-
work with Chief Reed and come up with like tips for,
Right,
I think one for the parents would also be appropriate.
yeah.
When even the high schoolers, I mean, you talk about it when the kids are little, but then by the time they're high schoolers, you don't have a conversation with them anymore. And, I know this email, it created a conversation with my daughters about safety and not leaving school and things like that, and just in general. So.
okay, any more comments? Glad I asked.
You know why I got a collar on. So basically, I'm a deacon, so I'm not a priest. I'm a deacon in the church. So obviously, there's forgiveness, and I'm all about second chances and love of neighbor in the name of Jesus Christ. But I just wanted, so it wasn't just one person that got up and spoke. I have a wife and 2 kids, 2 young kids, and we homeschool, and we're just a walk away. So there's that dynamic that I just want to make you guys aware of as well. So I just want to be an educated dad. And I kind of understand, like Mr. Anella said, just to kind of be an educated person. If you guys could give me as a homeschooler a little bit more information on good practices, safety practices, things like that for a homeschooling person that's in the neighborhood in conjunction with the school system, that would be great. Thank you.
Is there any opportunity for like a stranger danger type thing the
Yeah,
community could be invited to?
I think the experts on this are going to be in the police force, but I think that what we'll do is reach out to them and try to come up with some sort of program where, whether it's we're developing, informational materials, having talks on site. Like I said, Chief Reed is he's all about community policing, and if ever there was a situation that called for that mindset, I think this is it. So we'll touch base with him and see what we can move forward here. All right. Okay, new business. Reductions in positions, and Dr. Mulqueen will discuss the situation.
Another happy discussion. So thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
That would keep them in their seats.
Thanks, folks.
No, it rushes everybody out. I want to back up just a bit before we begin reducing positions. There's been a recent increase in our special education costs in the district. In the past month or so, we've been alerted to some increased costs that are coming our way. And initially, Greg thought that that would be something that we could take care of internally. But the costs, once we sat down to really get a handle on it, came up to be about $509,000. So, $500,000 is a lot of money for us in our budget. And as good as Greg is about making sure we have reserves and our accounts are healthy and that we don't go into any kind of risky situation, $500,000 is a lot of money. So he and I sat down to go through, where our reserves were, our budget line items, and we think we can probably take care of between $300,000, $350,000 of that, but that's going to leave us a little bit short. And it's not that we would drain all of our reserves, because that would be an unhealthy situation, but it would bring us down pretty substantially. And at the end of the day, we thought I needed to come to you to say, it looks like we need to look at some of the efficiencies in our staffing to make some reductions. So, you know, among those efficiencies, I'm obligated to represent that we haven't yet hired an assistant superintendent. So, you know, that's certainly something that you all could decide needs to be delayed until maybe January for advertising and to hire a year from July rather than this July. It's not that I recommend that, but I just want to put it out there that that position is there. Now, other efficiencies that we have in mind, I have a chemistry position that we have not been able to fill. There just aren't a lot of chemistry teachers out there. So a way of doing this would be to, for instance, collapse some of the sections of other science courses, not eliminate science or not eliminate a program, but just reduce some sections and reassign some of the chemistry to other teachers, and we would be able to collapse one position in that way.
Are those teachers going to be certified in chemistry?
Well, they could be, or they could teach one outside of their area of certification, you know.
Okay, so that's a real juggling act for you. If you came up with 4 teachers that were going to teach one, that might do it.
It's not so tough.
Okay.
Yeah, so I already talked with Jonathan and Ken, and it's really not that big a
Okay.
deal. So the next part is we have a part-time floating custodian at the elementary level.
Actually, it's a full-time.
Oh, full-time, sorry.
0.25 in report.
Yep, sorry. So we have a full-time floating custodian at the elementary level, and that's not considered to be essential. I mean, it's a nice to have, but it's not essential.
It's also not filled right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's all
Yeah.
there.
And we have, if you were to continue with the assistant superintendent position, just the timing is going to delay the start date for a candidate. So if you have an employed person and you hire them mid-July, they're going to have to give notice, and there's likely to be a delay, which would potentially save, I don't know, $30,000 or so, you know. To me, it makes some sense to look at some of these efficiencies to make do for now, because it won't have a high impact on our students. Whereas, you know, what I'd be cautious about is not filling the assistant superintendent position. We need that to really get our system to another place right now. But again, it's for you to decide and give me direction on, and I'm happy to go in any direction you'd like me to, but I thought because it involves staffing, I needed to take it to you and get some discussion here. Lloyd?
I'd be reluctant to postpone the assistant superintendent again after coming up seemingly 3-4 years in a row. It's true, the pool might not be as good as if we delayed it another year and put it out for next year. But I think the amount of work that the special ed director has up in the central office, he seemingly is never out of the office because he's constantly filled with paperwork. I think faculty in the region needs to see him, that he's involved in as many special ed meetings as possible. And if for some reason there's no candidates, no viable candidates available out there, I think the subcommittee of 3 will certainly find out in a hurry. I'm thinking there's 30 or more candidates that have applied. That closed last week, last Friday, and of a pool of 30-plus candidates, I'm assuming, hopefully we'll find one that is a valid candidate, and I'm sure the subcommittee will do their job. I just very reluctant to say, let's get the money in that fashion. I think it was needed last year, the year before that, and the year before that, and the superintendent took on those extra jobs, and I don't want that to continue. I also don't want the special needs person to get hung up in the super's office all his time. Doesn't work that way, and that is one of the functions of an assistant superintendent. So it's too bad that we're caught with this close to $500,000 thing right after we get our budget down. But it occurs, and bad news is, this usually occurs the second week of May through June. So it may not be the only, because that's when people move around. So my feeling is we should keep that assistant superintendent. We've put it off too long. We need the help up there for innumerable reasons, so.
Bill, you raised your pen.
I did raise my hand. Just to speak to the fact of, you know, the candidates that we had, I did a reading of the folder today, and the breadth of the applications is very impressive. So if we want an assistant superintendent, which I'll speak to later, certainly in this file, there is one to be chosen. It's a wide range, very qualified, very dynamic, interesting group of people.
Joanna.
I agree with Wayne that I don't think we can continue to do without this position, so I want to support going forward with this.
I feel the same way, except I need to know where the money's coming from. I mean, there's only so much money in the bag, and we can't go outside the bag. And as one who in the early days, when I was a rookie, I taught 3 courses out of my certification.
We can't do that anymore, Dick.
No, I know. But you know, my neighbors were also adamant. So that'll give you an idea how old. But that's very, you know, we use the term world class, and teaching out of your certification is not getting us to world class. So I'm kind of, it's like I'm talking to myself and I'm not winning either argument. I just need to know where the money's coming from.
Chris?
Well, so my concern is also about the chemistry sections, and that's a very specialized area of teaching, and I would be concerned that we would be putting teachers outside of their comfort zone, outside of their educational background. I mean, I'm sure anybody who teaches science has had chemistry, but if they're not specialized in it, I'm very concerned about how that's going to translate to our students' learning, to our students on AP tests, you know, going forward in their future academic careers. And the other part of the assistant superintendent part is, you brought up a point about we have a great pool of applicants, but that group is already going to be delayed for, I'm just wondering what this conversation over here is and if it's something that I need to know. I'm at a loss as to why you guys were talking to each other when
No, I was asking, I had a thought following up exactly on what you were talking
Okay.
about, and I did not wish to interrupt.
Okay. So the person's already going to be delayed, probably not starting before September is what I would imagine. And if we were to delay an assistant superintendent until next year, we could probably get the whole process started much earlier in the process to get somebody in place for July 1st. So then you have the summer, which is probably the best time to kind of have a learning curve. That's just another point that I think we need to take into account too. Given I mean, I wouldn't be saying this other than we're facing a $500,000 shortfall because of these unexpected expenses coming up.
Wade?
I agree with Christine, because chemistry is extremely difficult, along with physics, and I'm still in the loop with the science supervisors for the state. I got 2 things today, needing a chemistry teacher, looking for them for months, and unable to get it. And I think if you look at the documents, there are less physics and chemistry certified teachers than there are positions in the state. And that's held true for a long time since we've started getting certifications in those 2. It's very difficult areas. I agree with her 100%. It does take some people out of their comfort zone. If you got a BS in biology in most schools, you're required to take 16 hours of chemistry, big deal, 4 courses. And you do teach 2, as a biology teacher, 2, sometimes 3 chapters of chemistry and biology. Takes them out of their comfort zone, no question, but we're not talking mid to upper level chemistry, I'm assuming. We're not talking AP, honors chemistry, or the next one. So in reality, the chemistry teachers aren't out there. In reality, periodically, that's what we have to do. As a science director, I had to do it. And I would get together with at that time, I guess there was 8 or 9 of them, and ask for volunteers who would be more comfortable moving over and teaching an introductory chemistry. And it always worked out because the chemistry teachers that were there were always very willing to help them step by step going through the curriculum. So yes, it's very difficult, but it can be done. And we're not going to be hurting the upper levels of chemistry that are going on to science in college that are it's necessary to have that background.
I don't suppose any of the candidates for assistant superintendent are also certified to teach chemistry?
You might have had one or two.
That would be a home run.
You know, if I could piggyback on what Wayne was saying, it would be interesting to know, and I don't think we have it right now, what the numbers are for those classes. Could some of those chemistry classes be consolidated? You know, if you had, say, groups of 3 sections of 15.
Well, I think that all that's administrative work that we could sort through. And it's not that we don't have people who are capable of teaching chemistry, it's that they don't currently. So, you know, we would sort through that and make sure that we had people who were confident and capable, you know, in those positions.
Chris?
With regard to the budget, though, a chemistry teacher compared to a salary of an assistant superintendent, we're still not getting up to the 500,000, but that not filling in that chemistry teacher is a much smaller number, I would imagine.
Sure, I can fill in a little bit of the gaps, and at least, I'm sorry, Lisa already had that one.
Well, I was just, well, no, you can answer the question, then I'll.
Well, Chris brings up a valid point, you're talking about a few different positions. Well, obviously, a lot of you were all in this district 8 years ago, and I know it was a very powerful lesson that I learned, that things in schools can change very quickly. When I got here, I made it my mission in life to make sure I slept at night. So we do hold reserves. We hold reserves in circuit breaker, which is reimbursed from the state. You'll see in the budget, we usually take about we've taken about 1.1 million out of special ed costs. I'm assuming next year we're going to start, even after taking 1.1 million out, with about 325,000 in there. So we could use a third of that to help close the gap and still have some cushion to go toward additional special ed costs. Also, since we've been weaning ourselves off school choice, I've been less using that as a budgetary item. And also, school choice funds are allowed to be used by the school committee for a purpose in the school that's educationally based. We should be starting next year with a balance in that account of around 500,000. Again, we could use 100,000 of that and still not really hurt ourselves. We'll be putting an additional 380,000 into stabilization on July 1st based upon last year's budget passed. That'll bring that account to 414,000. I'm not going to mention that one because that's when we talk about in case we need the MSBA. I also carry money in the district-wide use of facility account, which is which I can use to balance of custodial overtime. So, as the superintendent alluded to and brought to you, the few positions he started to talk about that he wanted to go through, that plus our reserves helps us. It also doesn't cripple us. It keeps us where we're going in the past. And I'm gonna say this, even though it's probably not even my place to say it. I do sit next door to the special ed director, and it's a constant battle for him to get out. And he needs to be in these schools. He needs to be in these teams. He needs to be working with these people because it's becoming a big rolling ball going downhill that's only getting worse. It's hard to have all the people in the buildings be responsible for every IEP, every plan for every child, and it's beginning to cause a bit of a problem. And it's going to be becoming a snowballing problem going forward if we don't start getting it at an earlier age. I think having him out. I know he wants to be out there. He constantly says, I wish I could get to this meeting. I wish I could get to the school. He just can't get there. So I'm leaning towards, I mean, it's not my call, I get that, but I think it would behoove us to begin to arrest that situation as much as we can going forward.
I'm going to call on Lisa because she hasn't said anything yet.
I have a lot of different things a lot of different areas here. A few years ago, I went to the Day on the Hill, and one of the things that I raised my concerns with the state legislature was that circuit breaker, it doesn't cover a huge percentage of kickback after that year has gone of using special ed fees on a student.
The circuit breaker, basically you own, there's a number they'll throw it every year, somewhere in that $45,000 range.
Right,
The
but
first
it's a small number.
$45,000's on you,
Yeah,
no matter what.
but it's a small number.
And then
but-
after that, they'll pay for 75% of the cost over that, or 72%, or whatever number they put into that budget.
Now, Mass Health also kicks in a small portion as well for students. You know, you can
Yeah,
tap
there is
into.
some Medicaid work we do and things like that we get a Medicaid reimbursement part of that we also use as a revenue source in our budget, the Medicaid reimbursement line. You'll see, that's where we get some funding for that helps balance it off.
But the concern that I had raised, and I know that other school committee members through the years have also raised, is that when you do have students that are in, out-of-district placements in residential settings, it's hard that the school is picking up almost like 24 hours of a hospitalization bill, when in reality, the child might be getting 4 to 6 hours worth of academic services or OT or PT or speech to access the academics, where the school is picking up, a nighttime nurse at 2 o'clock in the morning kind of thing, and getting private health insurances to start kicking in and paying for portions of that.
Yeah.
So schools don't, but, I don't think that there's been any change with legislation on that. And there might never be, but, that's always something that we hope for, that, people's personal health insurances will pick up some of these bills. And I'm concerned with this big bill now, because then, like Wayne had said, people are moving all the time over the summer. And those numbers can change very quickly, but it's still our responsibility to meet the needs of students. And it's interesting that you bring up, Mike not being able to get out into the meetings. And, in my other life, I'm a special education advocate. I go to a lot of school districts, I sit in a lot of meetings. And I'd say probably 80% of the meetings that I sit in, a special ed director is in those meetings with me.
Yeah.
And, I'm not in these meetings looking for out-of-district placements. I'm in there helping a family maneuver, the special education journey. And it saddens me to know that Mike's not getting to more meetings, because he's a very critical member of all the teams, but he's not essentially sitting in the meetings as being part of the teams. And, I'm going to come back to, the assistant superintendent. I think it's needed, and I don't want to put that on hold.
With the administration, I remember when I was assistant principal, there were very few special ed meetings that I missed. I was there for there'd be very, very few. I was at just about every single one. So I'm wondering, until we get all of this in place, what is the role of assistant principals, what is the role of principals, and I'm not trying to add to their job description, but if we need a stopgap and we need more people in there, we certainly need to get that special education director into these meetings, so he has the pulse of what's going on throughout the district.
Well, at the elementary level, we don't have assistant principals.
Yeah, you
Well-
have one at PEG now.
Well, what we have, Dick, is an increasing complexity in our student population. And it's not that we need more people in the meetings. We have special ed coordinators at the elementary level or secondary level. We have the principal going into meetings as needed, but we need the added specialty because of the complexity of the kids. So even recently, I've had to become involved with a very complex case. And we have more and more students who require specialization that goes beyond a reasonable teacher's level of experience. So that's the kind of thing that Mike is so critical for. And he does great work, but the level of need, it just keeps, marching at a pace faster than we can keep up with. That's the difficulty.
Wait,
If I'm hearing this correctly, because there's a lot being thrown out, if Greg has already done his homework to see where we could get some funds to help alleviate that, close to $500,000, and those 3 positions that were just thrown out to us, that was suggested by Dr. Mulqueen, am I to assume at this point, between what you found and those 3 positions, will that cover it?
In various combinations of that, yes.
Yeah,
There
we
may
have
be an
to,
there may be an additional non-filled position that'll show up, but those happen all the time throughout the thing, and if it does happen, we'll take advantage of it to keep our reserves. But for the most part, this is what, you kind of, they're like the movie Dave had, I found some efficiencies that can pay for the program, but this is more of us saving up just in case for this scenario.
Then I move then that we take a vote that we keep this, well, we don't even need that, but this, on the table, I'd like to say that between the funding you found and these 3 positions, eradicating them, will be the way to fund this $500,000 debt.
Well, the 3 positions includes the assistant superintendent, doesn't it? Or
No,
am I missing a
actually, it
it's
was-
chemistry,
it was an
it's
open-
custodian.
It was an open science,
the
open
guidance counselor.
custodian, and a delay of the assistant principal, and there may be another
Assistant
opening.
principal?
Delay.
No, delay in hiring of the superintendent, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right, so that's but that's the 3, so you're
Right.
not saying the 3, you're just saying the other 2, not the assistant superintendent.
I think,
Yes, not the assistant
Right.
superintendent. I definitely want that.
So,
Well, the 3, weren't they, when you said a guidance counselor?
well, we didn't say a guidance counselor. What Greg was saying was if there are other positions that might become vacant, that we
Become
look at
vacant,
those. It
okay.
doesn't mean that we
No,
would,
that's fine.
Yeah.
I just want to make the motion so it doesn't touch the implementation of a new assistant superintendent.
yeah. I was just looking for guidance from you all. I don't know that you have to vote on the assistant superintendent again. And, so I have my understanding of, where I should go with this, and I can accomplish that.
yeah, it becomes a more fluid situation, but we have 400 employees here. And it's as simple as, if some person goes on maternity leave, and you replace them with a long-term sub,
You have a
save
savings, right.
15,000.
Right.
I mean, these things can rapidly come up and rapidly go down.
Right.
So we wait and see what happens over the summer, and we'll wait and see what happens after what the August 1st deadline on the new teacher's contract. Some people may,
So no motion has to be made because we've already voted in an assistant superintendent position.
Yeah.
And our present special ed staff is sufficient in terms of meeting the needs of these new students.
Yeah, so we're shaping what that looks like. You approved 2 special ed positions in this last budget.
Yep.
One of those is going to go toward this,
and I
new need.
think part of the 550,000 is some additional speech and language help, as well as some occupational therapy help that's going to be
Yeah, it's not
required.
just a special education
It's not like
teacher.
out of district
They-
cost, there's some
Yeah.
internal costs we're going to handle with some of these children coming
Yeah.
this way.
And I appreciate that you were able to manage these costs without having to eliminate any existing positions.
No, there's nobody in the holes right now that we
Right.
wouldn't be talking about.
That's great.
Has there been a conversation about bringing back outside placement and hiring
All the
people
time.
what that savings would be?
Yeah, all
or
the
not?
time. Yeah, you have to be careful, though, that you don't overextend yourself and bring back a population of students that you're incapable of really servicing well. And so we're always thinking about who can we bring back, and,
Okay.
is there a cost savings?
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Jen Solis.
Can I just double check my understanding of the superintendent's, because there's not going to be a vote. The idea is to tap reserve funds and not fill 2 positions, chemistry and the custodian. Is that what your understanding is?
Yeah, and to look to other staffing efficiencies that might come up as
And
we,
if that happens, then you take less out of the reserve, is that my understanding?
we take less out of reserves, or maybe I don't have to.
Or maybe a
look-
chemistry teacher shows up.
Yeah, maybe a chemistry teacher shows up. So,
The
at the end of the
superintendent
day,
teaches.
what we're looking at are staffing efficiencies and the combination of that and some reserve funds that we have, right?
Not the assistant superintendent.
Right.
Okay, any more discussion? And let's move on to the PAT contract. So, we've all reviewed it, we've all discussed it. It's time to vote on it. So may I have a motion to approve the PAT contract?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of approving the PAT contract? All against? Unanimity.
Oh,
Abstain.
When it's one abstention.
And one abstention.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Bill. Okay, school committee schedule for FY 17-18.
So we have 2 meetings in July? Correct.
Right. And with this, I'll selfishly talk about myself. As most of you know, I have to go under the knife on Monday. So I will be missing our next meeting this month, but I'll be back for July 11th.
Now, are we having another business meeting this month?
Yes, on the 20th.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the one comment that I have, and I tried to remember, so I remember saying last January that our meeting schedule didn't make sense based on what was going on with the budget. And I don't quite remember what I thought didn't make sense. So I was trying to think it through, and I think it's just so fluid at that point in time that either we met too early and we're getting information that we knew was gonna change, and then we didn't schedule enough meetings later on as we got closer before the public hearing. So I don't know if we can remember. Greg, do you remember?
Yeah, well, the regional agreement says we have to get them the budget in time. Basically, I think it's 45 days
Right.
for them to post it, before they post it. So
Right.
you're talking now 45, 2 weeks, middle of April, go back. So you're looking to give it to them right around the first or the second week of March. You
Right.
need to vote it out. So we usually try to do that.
So that would
Schedule
be-
for the last meeting in February to do that.
Right, but
In
that's
case
the
there's a
public
weather
hearing
issue or
now.
something like that? Is that what we got now? Yeah, February 27th would be the.
Public hearing, and I think last year we ended up voting on it on the subcommittee meeting night, which would be March 6th.
I think we voted it on the night of the public hearing, as I recall.
No, that was the year before.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
Last year, I think we had
Chris,
that delay.
Chris is correct.
Okay.
We put in a meeting at the beginning of March, I'm pretty sure, to
Yeah.
do our vote, to get in according to the regional agreement. So maybe we want to add, an additional meeting in there, but it depends on the timing of this whole thing.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you're right, because the subcommittee, the business meeting is the one you want to vote the budget at, but the
Right.
subcommittee is always, which would be the first Tuesday in March.
Right,
That's the one you want to do, but that's subcommittee schedule.
right.
Can you reverse those two?
Well, you could just add one in, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I forget if we got the budget in December last year?
No, I try to give, I remember it, January 19th.
You gave us the budget.
Mhm.
So the finance committee must have seen it at their subcommittee
Do you
meeting.
have a calendar?
Probably a little bit earlier than that, I
Yeah.
was playing with it, yeah. But
Because I just remember
What's the
thinking
first
last year
Tuesday
that
of
we
March?
spent
Yeah.
an awful lot of time on information we knew was gonna change. So
Yeah.
that next year we needed to change it, and I don't remember what I thought.
Six.
Yeah,
The 6th.
March 6th? So why don't we add a March 6th meeting?
Well, we have a
And,
It is,
subcommittee
it's a
meeting.
subcommittee meeting that day.
but why don't we add a business meeting
Business
for March 6th? And if for some reason we don't need it, we can shift that around, but at least you'll have it in your calendar.
So after the subcommittee meeting, we move into business
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah, we could do that. We can piggyback subcommittee meetings, but at least you'll have your business meeting there.
yeah, I mean, the only real meeting obviously there's all these different subcommittees. The one we have to do is, pay people and pay our bills every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So that's just for those of you on the business subcommittee, that's not a long process.
But we can come in.
Yeah, we could come in and do it before that anyways.
Yeah, so that would be good if we had a March 6th business meeting inserted in there. Anything else?
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the school committee schedule for fiscal year 2017, 2018?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Unanimous again. Okay, we have a donation to the Page School from the Lowe's Charitable and Education Foundation of $5,000 to the Page School's STEAM initiatives. Can I have a motion to approve accepting this donation?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Seems like a good thing.
All opposed? It passes. And for that, I have to buy an axe. I'm going to Lowe's. All right, that brings us to the end of our agenda. May I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Do you still want on the next agenda the subcommittees?
We'll do that next business meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All opposed? All right, we're all set.